My name is Nartak Gopal Dasi, and I was born in the United States. The largest river in America is the Mississippi River, and I was born on a high cliff above the Mississippi River in the city called St. Paul, and the state is Minnesota. It's up north, not too far from Canada. And I lived there my entire life until I was 20 years old. My parents, my father's family had been in America for 100 years. They came from, his mother and father both came from Austria in Europe. And my mother's parents had been in America about 150 years, family, you know, and they were from Ireland. So I was raised in the Catholic religion. And always, whenever I would, grew up in the 1950s. So at that time, there were almost no Indians living in America. And anything Indian, it was just not available to study or to read about. No books, nothing on TV, hardly. But I was always, whenever I heard of yoga or India, it always like appealed to me, and I wish I could learn more, but there was nothing available, you know. So then finally, I was going to the university. I went to the University of Minnesota for 4 years. And one day I was walking across the street in downtown Minneapolis. It means at rush hour, so all the people are crossing the street at one time, and right in the middle of the street, one girl sold me a Back to Godhead magazine. So I read that, and I was, you know, very interested. And I remember calling my friend and saying, "Listen to this. It says we have to give up our sense gratification. Is that cool or what?" I mean, I had no idea what it meant. I still don't, you know, because I haven't given it up yet. But at least I understand a little more what it means now. But I was very attracted. That was Prabhupada's lecture. So then when I finished school, I decided that I should travel a little. And I first went to Denver. And my first stop was the temple. So I went to the temple. And I got my first prasadam ever in this lifetime. They gave me a sweet ball, I remember, Simply Wonderful. And I'd never tasted anything like that in my life. And then they gave me prasadam also. I mean, sabji, etc. This was 1973. Yeah, 73. So then I went to the Rath Yatra in San Francisco. And Prabhupada was not there that year. However, the devotees had a big Rath Yatra. They have it in Golden Gate Park, and thousands of people. And I actually, a lot of devotees were up on the stage chanting, so I actually went up on the stage and chanted with them for about 2 hours or something. And at that point, I got 2 books. I got the second canto, part 1 of Srimad Bhagavatam, and I got the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. And I got some kartals, and then I went to live, then I was going to go live in Central America, Guatemala, but on the way passed through Mexico City, so I went to the temple. And they have a beautiful temple. It's still in Chapultepec Park. It used to be a big, the embassy, so now it's a temple, very beautiful. And they have Radha Madan Mohan deities. Radha Madan Gopal deities are there. And very beautiful. So, and I got some BTGs to distribute. I didn't know that, you know, devotees are into book distribution or anything, but I just got about 10 BTGs, and I said, I'm going to give these to people, you know, in my travels. So then I went to live in Guatemala, which is the country that's right next to west or south of Mexico, the next country down. And I stayed there for 9 months, and every day I would read the Bhagavatam and the books, and play the kartals a little. And I was very attracted to the Sanskrit. So I would read it every day for a few hours, because I really didn't have much else to do, So I would read. And I started to offer my food. And and then after that 9-month period, I decided I was going to go. I went just to South America for like a week or two, and I didn't like it at all. So I flew back to America, and I was flying to Miami. I had never been there before. It's the southernmost city in the United States on the East Coast. So I went to Miami. When I got there, I called the devotees, because I had, a magazine with the phone number in it for the temples. So I called them, and they told me, it's Sunday today. We're having our Sunday feast at Peacock Park. There's a park in Miami called Peacock Park. So went to the park, went to the Sunday feast, and I never left. So I just stayed there in the temple for the rest of the time, for the rest of my life. And after started doing book distribution, liked it, so we went out every day. After I had been there for 6 or 7 months, my family called, and they said that my mother was sick and that I should come home and visit. So I said, okay, I guess I better go if she's sick, They said she was pretty sick. So, it's like a 4 or 5 hour flight or something from Florida up to Minnesota. It's a distance, it's a couple thousand miles or something. So I went there, and I was a little surprised to see that she wasn't sick when I got there, but nothing clicked in my brain, so I said, okay. So I stayed for a week, and on the day that I was supposed to fly back, a car pulled up to the house, and it was Ted Patrick, who was, like, at that time, the most famous deprogrammer in the world. He's the one that kind of started deprogramming, which is something that they had in the 70s. Past the 70s, it was like illegal, because they threw people in jail for doing it. It's like they're kidnapping people, So, so he was the most famous one, and somehow they'd gotten in touch with him. What they do, deprogramming means if you don't like something your kids are doing, it could be anything. They're trying to join the Hare Krishnas. They're trying to become a Catholic priest. They're trying to become a Buddhist monk. If you don't like it, then these people come in and they grab your kids, and they try to talk them out of it, for days. They'll spend days saying, you can't do this is not good, So they're trying to tell me why Hare Krishna movement is not good, So there were like, I don't know how many people in the room, 12 people in there against me. And this guy, the deprogrammer, he was just really a big foolish person, but anyway, it was a horrible experience. In my life, it was one of the most horrible experiences. And because virtually, so they had me kidnapped. I couldn't leave. So imagine, And so I knew what to do here. I think I just better kind of, pretend I'm going along with it instead of fight it, and maybe he'll leave faster, So after he left, they held me captive for, I think a week, and my father stayed home from work and everything. And then finally, after a week, when my father, there was nothing I could do. I couldn't go out. I couldn't leave the house. Finally, one day, I was able to phone the temple. I snuck to the phone and was able to call the temple. And our temple president was Avirama. I said, Prabhu, you know, they deprogrammed me. I'm here. He said, well, just come back. I said, Prabhu. He said, just leave the place. I said, Prabhu, I can't leave. You know, I'm held captive here. He said, well, when you leave, he said, when you do leave, just go to the airport and we'll have a ticket waiting for you. So after the week, my father went back to work, and I went to my mother and I said, you know, this is terrible. You know, I just want to go to the store, you know, like that. So finally she let me out, and all I had was, and it was the middle of winter in Minnesota, which is snow, you know, cold. So all I had was my coat. I had a $10 bill. You know, they had taken away everything, my neck beads, my books. They had taken everything away. And even, you know, I think I had sent my parents a Krishna book. And the one story that my father decides to read in Krishna book, he was reading the story about who was the demon that was cutting off his flesh and offering it to Lord Shiva, you know. And finally he remember the one that wanted to touch your head, and then so he was cutting off his flesh. Finally he was going to cut off his own head, and finally Lord Shiva said, okay, what do you want, you know? I'll give you any benediction. So my father I sent him Krishna book, and that's the story he decides to read. And he said, look at this. Is this normal? He's cutting off his flesh. You know, he's saying, this Krishna consciousness, what is this, you know? So they were holding me captive, and finally I escaped. I walked out of there. I had a $10 bill, which was, anyway, I was so afraid that I walked to the exit of the freeway, which was a few blocks from their house, and I went down to the next exit. I hitchhiked a ride and got to the next exit just so I could go into a shop and call the temple. You know, I was paranoid that they were going to come chasing after me. So I called them, and he said, we have the ticket waiting for you. I made a collect call to Miami, and Avi Rama said, we have the ticket waiting for you. So I just took the $10 bill I had, was what it cost to ride to the airport, and that's all I had on me. So I went to the airport, and I went back to the temple. And after that, I was like frightened for a long time. I was like paranoid. I'd be out on Sankirtan, and they sent one devotee, Balabhasain Das. He had broken his foot. So they sent him as my bodyguard, you know, because he couldn't do Sankirtan himself, you know. So they sent him with me every day to make sure that nothing happened. But you know, anyway, finally, after many, many years, my parents were okay. When we kind of patched it up. But that was what happened. So I went back to the temple and distributed books for many years. And then every day we go to the airport, Miami International Airport. I was the one that opened it up. One day, because I was doing the streets, and I thought, the airport might be a nice place. So I went there, and in about 2 hours, I did the same as I do the whole day. So I told them, hey, you know, I went to the airport today, and they were, wow. So they went to the lawyer, and they opened it up so we could do it legally. And then we started sending out a lot of people, you know, to the airport. On our team, we had Panchagoda Prabhu, if you know him, he's temple president, and in Vrindavan, we had Vijay Das, if you know Vijay Prabhu, yeah. So every day, we would go out. We had the team, and then I went to live in India in '89, and so for a year and a half, I lived in Vrindavan, Sri Vrindavan Dham. And then after that came here to Juhu. And after I lived here in Juhu for 5 years, then went back to Florida. And now I live in Alachua. And the service I do in Alachua is Monday through Friday. I start the Rajabhoga. Every day I make chapatis for the deities and the devotees for lunch. And then I help out Miami Temple as a property trustee there, and do newsletters for them and things like that, write the donor letters for federal income tax donations for all the donors and things like that. So that's so that's the service that I do. That's what, and distribute books, of course. Prabhupada is always with us if we are following his instructions, thinking of him, reading his books, engaged in his seva. Then he's always with us and he never leaves us. It's not like you can say, some people might ask me, oh, you're a Prabhupada disciple. I really wish that I could have been here when Prabhupada was on the planet and seen Prabhupada and gotten his blessings. Well, you can get his blessings now just by following his instructions and reading his books and engaging in his seva. So it's not like that, because even one time my god sister Jamuna asked Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, how many times were you with your Guru Maharaj? And Srila Prabhupada said, since I met him, I have never been away from him, not even for 1 second. So that's the case for everybody, not just for Prabhupada disciples, not just for the direct disciples, for the grand disciples and for anybody aspiring in Krishna consciousness. As long as you can somehow, get close to the fire, you can also get warm and become fired up too, And that fire is anything to do with Prabhupada, his books, his instructions, his teachings, his disciples, his temples. So that's the beauty, of Krishna consciousness. And, even Prabhupada said, never think that I am absent from you. Physical presence is not essential. Presence by message or hearing is real touch. Lord Krishna is present by his message, which was delivered 5,000 years ago. We feel always the presence of our past acharyas, simply by their immutable instructions. So that's the message I would give people. If you want to become Krishna conscious, if you want Prabhupada's association, then just study his books, associate with his disciples, engage in his seva, and you have it also. That's the beauty of the gift that Srila Prabhupada has given us. It's transcendental and it's available. But we have to have some eagerness in our heart, So yes, I'm very grateful, eternally grateful to Prabhupada and to ISKCON for giving me my life, giving me Krishna. It's the perfection of life.